If you're gonna do something, you better do it now.
Never forget that no matter how powerful you become. I miss you, mate.
Avengers, subscribe to the Geek Legion of Doom.
Spider-Man Brand New Day, the most anticipated movie of mine for 2026, directed by Dustin Daniel Cretton and of course starring Tom Holland. So the fourth movie in the Tom Holland version of the Spider-Man series of films, and of course this one does take place after the last one where everyone's lost their memory of who Peter Parker is in relation to Spider-Man. So I will say this is a film where it does kind of somewhat require you to really know what has happened. It does try to kind of catch you up, but I would say all the kind of the Spider-Man films so far, this one is the most reliant on the film before it to kind of set the stage. And in this one, Peter Parker is struggling with the loneliness basically, and being kind of isolated from everyone who knew he was Spider-Man, and is sort of struggling with that. Because of this, he's kind of surrendering into his spider DNA, so to speak, and is having these mutations. At the same time, we have a mysterious figure who seems to be able to control people telepathically, causing chaos, and this leads Spider-Man to encounter various other characters to find out what the hell is going on. What will happen, you have to watch the movie and find out. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review. What did I like about it? I think Tom Holland is great as Spider-Man. I think he's really nailed the part. I know there's been this kind of nostalgia way for Tobey Maguire in recent years, but you know, I'm old enough to kind of have seen all the Spider-Man films at the cinema, and I got to say, I do think Tom Holland captures what it means to be Peter Parker the best, in my opinion. And I do think he brings this sort of tragic hero, particularly in this movie, where he has made these kind of sacrifices to be, basically Spider-Man, and that's pretty much all his life now. And we see various kind of snippets about what he's kind of doing, and at this point, you know, the city has seemed to have embraced him. So I kind of quite like that on one hand his Spider-Man persona is so beloved by so many people, but as Peter Parker he is ostracized, he is alone, he's sort of almost given up on that part of his life, so to speak. So I found that personal dichotomy very interesting, and to me the most thrilling part of the movie, or maybe not thrilling, but maybe there's certainly the most thing with the best emotional hook, I have to say. I thought that those parts of it were done well, and I think Holland excels in this role. I think he has struggled with other roles, but he's very good in this one. Other supporting characters, I mean, it's not spoilers, you'll know that the Punisher's in here. He's very different, but he's more like the kind of the classic Punisher from the comics to some degree. Not his own solo series maybe, but when he's kind of crossed over with other sort of characters, he's the most comic booky in this one. I did quite like it. It's a little bit of a departure, but I did kind of quite like it. But I like his interactions with other sort of characters as well. I think the decision here not to have a villain in the traditional sense is an interesting one, and I think it somewhat works and makes it for a different sort of narrative here compared to fighting the next villain in a sort of cycle of Spider-Man villains. I think we don't have a true villain in this movie. And again, it does make the movie feel like it sort of stands apart from other ones. There are some pretty decent scenes in regards to kind of like VFX. I thought was very strong is where we see the kind of the POV shots and just the kind of the force that he's kind of swinging through this city, and it's kind of the vibrations and things like that. I think the actual kind of the plot with Zendaya's MJ, some people kind of turn their nose about that. I think it's quite good. I think it gives a good heart to the story. I sort of quite like that. And there are some great sequences. There's obviously a scene with the Hulk. It's a little shorter than I would have liked, and things like this. So, you know, there's quite a lot to enjoy with this movie. It does feel like it sort of is very much, you know, a continuation of that Peter Parker story. But what doesn't work for me is, I have to say, I felt this movie felt more like a TV show that has these episodes kind of like spliced together. In actual fact, I would say it reminds me of the She-Hulk TV series, in the sense that there's sequences here. For example, we have Damage Control, which are kind of this sort of organisation, and they're kind of using all the kind of like the tech and things like this that kind of have been used in superhero fights, and they go, oh, we've now got the hand working for us, and like we see like these hand ninjas just like hanging around, but they're like, yeah, they're leaderless now, so they've decided to kind of join, and they're just hanging around in their ninja gear. Like, why would they just be hanging around in their ninja gear? Well, surely they would be in their series and things like that. So it reminded me of She-Hulk in a way, where it has these sort of almost like goofier, sillier moments that, you know, in the context of the MCU as we've seen as it's been presented, it kind of stands out as being not goofy the whole way through, but goofier moments in that kind of like are the kind of the worst parts. And that leads me to like the Punisher. He's so different to other interpretations, so even the John Bernthal one. I don't know how I felt about it. It seemed like he's a different character to me. I quite liked his relationship with Peter, Spider-Man. That I did quite like, but at the same time, I think it sort of betrays a lot of what's been established. Is kind of the some way I was going to say that. As to, without any kind of spoilers here, there are other things that don't work. The kind of the subplot about his mutation, I felt goes nowhere. Unless they're kind of like, that's going to be like a trilogy long arc. But if it's just in this movie, I felt like, do you know what? I didn't really felt like that amounted to anything. I felt the Sadie Sink character, without revealing, you know, obviously the details about that, didn't really work for me. It didn't really feel like that. The relationship between Peter Parker and the character that Sadie Sink is playing didn't really ring true for me. It doesn't feel particularly authentic. It feels a little rushed when we have the personal interactions and somewhat kind of out of character, I would say. I didn't really felt like it was the best setup for where that maybe is going to go going forward. The Hulk scenes, there's a good sequence with the Hulk, but again, it was a little bit, that could have been a really like chunky action scene, but it was so short. I felt like it was a little, you know, this is the big action sequence really, I would say, for the film. And I didn't really think it sort of was as enthralling as it kind of could have been. There are other elements here, like I said, I think that the hands just seem goofy. And some of the kind of, again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers here. Some elements towards the last act of the movie, again, I just felt were like, feels kind of like unresolved. This feels like it's part of a season of a TV show. But I don't know if it really felt like it was like this event. It felt like it was kind of like smaller things that are happening. There's like more working parts that are kind of happening in the sort of Spider-Man universe. So lots of small little kind of subplots that are there to kind of like to tell this story, but it kind of feels, because of that, unfocused. It doesn't really feel like the narrative of this particular movie feels particularly narratively clear. Now it might be that this might be like part of a three episode story, like the next trilogy. I don't know, but judging it purely based on this, it feels unfocused. I mean, there are some things here that it's certainly setting up. They introduced the character of Jean DeWolf, and if you're a comic book fan, you might know where that's going to head. And it is one of the best arcs, I think, in Marvel Comics. And I wonder if they're going to go down that. They must do if they're going to introduce that character. But as a kind of a movie on its own, and it might be different if you judge this, well, the next 2 Spider-Man films or whatever they're going to do, but to me it just felt a little unfocused, a little kind of like a TV show, big budget TV show, but a TV show nonetheless. I'll give it a 6 out of 10, above average, but to me it was, I would probably put this, you know, I like Homecoming and the last one, No Way Home, better than this one. I'd probably put this on par with like Far From Home, which was the weakest out of the Tom Holland ones, but still has its moments. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. What were your thoughts if you've seen it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Avengers assemble on a sidewalk. Riveting.
Wow, this is so cool!
Stay alert, team. Let's move out.